Production and factory settings bring their own set of hurdles for wireless connections. Harsh conditions, both indoors and out, create a daunting task for engineers to work through. Now let me tell you, those engineers ain't looking to back down from a challenge like this, no sir. This here's where we gather round to tackle them hurdles, swap thoughts, and lend a hand. Welcome to the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop with your hosts, Scott and Jeremy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 17 of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop, Nothing But Net. My name is Scott McNeil. How are you guys doing today? With me, as always, the incomparable Jeremy Baker. Say hi, Jeremy.
Hello, how is everyone doing today?
It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. We have a great show for you today, but as per normal, got a few housekeeping things we want to go over. Guys, don't forget in the show notes that we do have a link to Jeremy's 3D printer profile for the Lucid brackets, for the Clarity Lucid brackets on Thingiverse. So if you want to print one of your own, we have the link there. Upcoming events, real quick, there's two notable ones from WiCo. Bordeaux, France on July 3rd is coming up. Now, I'm not going to fly across the ocean, so I won't be there. However, I'm sure there are lots of people who will be there. And then Bay Area, WiCo Bay Area in California on July 7th. I already know that is getting close to being sold out. They only have a few spots open. If you are in that area and you want to check out WiCo, this is going to be your opportunity. This is their first ever WiCo in that area. So, get in there and register now before they run completely out of spots. WiCo North Carolina was a huge, huge success. We had a great time, a lot of great presentations, a lot of great content. Things went so well. They're already in discussions that next year WiCo NC might become a 2-day event with individual deep dives. So WiCo is growing. The community is responding very, very well. I could not be happier to be involved with this group. It has been fantastic for so far, and it just keeps getting better. Jeremy, how was WiCo Tennessee?
I thought it was really good. They ended up having to get a larger space because Allie did a great job. They had to add a couple people last minute, so we switched locations, but all the talks were really good. Probably my favorite one out of the bunch was from Troy Martin, and it was all the math that gave you headaches in school, but he does a really good job with that stuff. There was a lady named May that gave a really good talk about kind of her experiences as an immigrant coming over and doing some things. It was just a really good time. And then we did the little demo out in the parking lot at the end of the day. That was kind of fun.
Yeah,
And
so
Allie actually,
your Ghostbusters backpack turned out pretty well.
yeah, it worked all right. Allie remembered his rollerblades, so
Oh,
that
well,
was pretty fun.
I didn't think we were going to be able to put Ollie on rollerblades, but that's pretty funny. Well, I guess he's really mobile then, so he's true mobility.
He was living his true '90s life.
Well, it wasn't all skate. It wasn't all skate. So, lastly, OT SCADA-Con by the Automation Ladies is coming up end of July 23rd through 25th. So if you are a wireless person who wants to know more about the OT universe and you are going to be in Texas, then OT SCADA-Con in Houston is going to be a great option for you to check out. It will make you aware of all kinds of things from PLCs to HMIs to machine safety, robots, cobots, you name it. They go into a lot of detail for a lot of different things. Check out OT. It's otscadacon.com, and it's put on by the Automation Ladies. And those girls know how to put on a good show. So it's good times. So today, episode 17, Nothing But Net, we have with us Julio Petrovich, the product manager from NetAlly. And guys, this guy is crazy smart. I met him several years ago when I had the opportunity to do a webinar with them where I was showing how I use one of their other products, Air Magnet, in industrial and manufacturing settings, both in surveying as well as predictive planning. And it was a really good time, and we've kind of kept in touch. And we saw each other at Waco, North Carolina, and I got to meet him in person. It was great, and I had been nudging at these guys for a while to try to get them on, and I finally sealed the deal there at Waco, and Julio made the mistake of agreeing, so now he's here. He's contractually bound whether he knows it or not. And we're going to talk about some amazing tools for the wireless universe that I have firsthand experience with and have been using in the OT universe. And that is the AirCheck series of handheld wireless testing devices. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Julio. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do. And, I realize this is an audio podcast, but Julio's rocking a Fallout t-shirt and it's awesome.
Well, thank you, Scott, for that. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you all. It's great to be here with you on the podcast. So, like Scott said, Julio Petrovich, product manager at NetAlly. And hey, what can I say about me? Wow. I've been working with network test solutions for about 20 something, I guess closer to 25 years now.
We are getting old.
Yeah, we all are, I guess, in a way. Uh, that being said, when I started, it was a little different. When I started more what used to be called POTS, or plain old telephone systems.
Yes, sir.
So testing old school phone lines. So it was all the testing stuff, but looking for minus 48 volts of power on the phone line, ring and tip stuff, identifying phone numbers, then moved to DSL, all the different versions of DSL, which I think they still use in some places. But
they do. DSL still exists, amazingly enough.
Yep, and it's been around for a while. Afterwards, let's say I got like tired of playing with cables for a while, and I decided to move more into the wireless world. So at that time, when I started, I was part of Fluke Networks, which you may have heard of. They do a lot when it comes to cable certification, testing, and so on. And then I became part of what was the Air Magnet business unit at the time. And I joined those guys. Basically, I started studying. I certified myself on everything from CWNA to CWAP, CWSP, CW. The first one was the TS, which they don't have anymore, which was the
Oh yeah, the technology specialist. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yep. That's the first one I did, and then I moved on to the other ones. So basically, I got all of them. Besides the CWNE, for some reason, I never just gotten that far, but I've got all of them. I think now you have to do also the IoT one, if I remember correctly.
CWISA, correct.
Yep.
And I was one cert away from going for CWNE, and life happens. You get busy, and my project load is enormous, and now I got to recertify so I can on a bunch of them, and so I got to push forward because Jeremy's going to end up getting CWNE before I do, which is awesome, by the way. But I'll never live that down. So.
And it's okay. We all get busy. That happened to me too. But hey, one of these days. Then after when I started there with the Air Magnet team, I was more like a technical marketing engineer for a while. So I specialized more on helping with product demonstrations, going out there on the field and helping people troubleshoot problems on their networks, and so on. And about 5-6 years ago, then I became product manager. First for the Air Magnet business unit. And then as we transitioned from, and at that time we were part of NetScout already, which some may remember after Fluke, we became NetScout for like 3 years.
I remember that.
Then afterwards, we became NetAlly, and I became product manager for all the network test solutions. So that still includes our magnet, but now it also includes AirCheck, Etherscope, link runner 10 gig, link runner 80, 3000, 4000, Link Printer, the test accessory, link and link live. So anything that doesn't have a cyber on the name, that's where basically I'm the product manager for. One of my coworkers, Brad Reinbold, is the product manager for Cyberscope. That
Okay.
being said, I am happy to talk about Cyberscope since it sounds like you've been playing with one already. So.
Yeah, I have one, and I have been putting it through its paces. I love with it. I spend quality time alone with it at night. It snuggles tight in on the pillow next to me. My wife looks at me strangely, but she doesn't understand. So so I mean, for those who are not familiar, let's go ahead and dive in. And let's start with the air checks. What is an air check, and what is it designed to do for those of us who work in the wireless fields?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, you can think of the AirCheck as a handheld base, all-in-one Wi-Fi network test solution. So, and when I say all-in-one, you will think, wow, that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But basically, you can do anything from just basic Wi-Fi network discovery. So it will tell you, for example, what all the APs are out there, SSIDs, BSSIDs, all the client devices. So you can see everything that's out there, how is it configured, to what device, for example, like, what API client is connected to, and so on. So you get that visibility. But besides that, you can also look at utilization levels, overlap information. You can also use the AirCheck as a site survey tool with what we call the AirMapper app. And we'll talk a little more about that a little later, but it allows you to do site surveys. You can also use it for spectrum analysis. And again, I'll talk a little more about that in a moment, but one of the things you can do with the AirCheck, yep, that little guy there, is that the operating system is a custom-made version of Android. So it allows you to install different types of, like any other phone or tablet or laptop, install different types of adapters to it, like a spectrum analyzer, as I mentioned earlier. Or you could install a USB camera, it could be a headset, it could be keyboard, mouse, basically different accessories like you would do with any other device these days. And you also have the option of installing third-party apps. So you could expand the functionality of the unit. So instead of just using the tools that we include, you can basically install your favorite, switch configuration app or your access point configuration app. Or if you have a test app that you like to use, you can just install that one too.
Yeah, on that note, on mine, I've actually installed Analyty and Juice SSH. So if I am stuck and I have no other means to, I'm out in the field, but I know I can fix an issue by SSHing into a switch, and I can see it, then I can do it right there on that Android touchscreen, which is really nice.
Yep. Funny enough, I have both of those apps installed on mine too. But not only that, just on the funny side of things is that being Android, you can also customize the feel and look. So if like you want to have a Star Wars background
I
on yours, you can
As
do
with
that.
everything I own, there is a stormtrooper background. So
Or I personally prefer the dark mode. So basically that background's a little darker color and so on. So you can customize it and use it however you prefer. And besides that, you also can do speed testing, just basically topology mapping is a big one, where you can not only discover all the devices, but generate a map or a topology map to see where everything is connected to. So basically, again, in a nutshell, an all-in-one handheld wireless tester.
So I recently took this on an adventure to an aluminum manufacturing facility. My whole goal was to pretty much exclusively only use this device, with the exception of some detailed spectrum analysis. For that, I was using my MetaGeek suite with my Oscium. But I have to say I was so pleasantly surprised at a lot of different things on how well this tool is adaptive for OT environments physically and the sheer overload of data that you can get. But I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole quite yet. I want to kind of go through and let's hit some of these major points that you were just touching on.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with active passive surveys. So
Mm-hmm.
for those in the OT universe, I know you guys don't have a ton of wireless experience or background, but for passive surveys, in order to see what you've got going on and generate heat maps, this tool is incredibly easy to use. It does not take long. The learning curve is very, very low in order for you to be able to figure out how to get out there and do a passive survey of whatever, be it a machine room, be it, in a paper mill, be it in power generation, or even outdoors at wastewater or whatever. It doesn't matter. Once you get your plans uploaded to Link Live and you get them calibrated and you push it back down, how you actually do that on the device is incredibly, incredibly easy. And yes, it's an Android device, but for an Android device, it has a pretty large screen. And so even my big meat hands can easily navigate it without much of an issue. Although I think I am going to get a stylus at some point, just for a little bit of more fine point accuracy while I'm walking around. But I've been really, really happy with how this handles surveys. And there's an interesting point to all this because a lot of times when you're in an industrial site, you get one shot to go through an area. It's rare that I get that you go into when you're doing wireless work that you go into a place that's during an outage because if you are, the things aren't running and you're not going to see what you need to see. So you have to be there during, runtime. And so many times the guys who work there they're willing to give you, the time and space to make a pass, right? But, you start coming back needing to do 3 and 4, they're going to get real irritated with you real quick, and it's going to make it for a very unpleasant experience. So while you're doing that and you're getting your passive survey data as it's sampling as you're walking, it's also collecting all of the other environmental sampling data that it then uses for analytics. So when you upload that file for the survey you just did on your device, when it uploads to Link Live, it's also uploading all of these analytic files too, which is amazing. But I'm getting off on a tangent. But just how easy this is to use. So now it's like most other survey tools, it's auto sampling. So you start it, you walk. The only time you have to mess with it is when you're changing directions. You tap it when you change directions. You follow your mapping that you've loaded to it and then calibrated. It's that easy.
Yeah, we designed to try to keep it as simple as possible. One thing for those that have been using, for example, an AirCheck or Cyberscope, Etherscope to do site service from the beginning, you may remember that at first we started with more like the tap and go. That was the first version of the app, just very super simple. Just stand there, tap on the screen, wait for a few seconds for it to scan through the channels, move to the next spot, and so on. And we decided to start there because for those that are not familiar with on how to perform a site survey, it's sometimes very easy to do. So you can teach someone that's never done a site survey, doesn't need to know how to basically walk slowly or wait for these scan time, keep it constant pace and so on. Just say, okay, stand there, tap, wait for that little clock to go through and start again, move and repeat. So when you're training someone that's never done a site survey, it's the easiest. So we decided to start there, but as time progressed and we added more, we increased the performance of the app, not only on the unit itself, but on Link Live. We added what we call the continuous mode, which was basically like a hybrid of tap and go and what we call auto sampling, just in case auto sampling is an old term from Air Magnet that carried over. But basically, in that case, it's saving data automatically, but you still have to tap on the screen manually. And then we decided to go with auto sampling, or what some others call continuous mode. And now you can just walk and it will continue saving data without you having to tap, and you just tap whenever you change directions. So over time, we keep adding more functionality now that the product or the app has matured throughout the last, year plus. So
Yeah, it's come a long way, because I remember on my G2, I used the air mapper for spot checks, to make sure, I was kind of getting that I was, but it's not something I could do a large area with. But this has proven itself. I was the place I was at, it's 400,000 square feet. You can't afford to sit there and just tap every few seconds. There's so much going on, and just physical safety alone, you have to keep moving. I've been really, really happy with it. And again, for our OT folks, it's incredibly easy to learn how to use. So literally in an afternoon, you can be fully trained on how to use it and collect this data. It's insane. And then it just pushes up to link live. So once you're done, you've gathered everything, you just connect it up to your wireless, so it has connections out to the universe, and then it uploads. You don't have to worry about being connected to any networks while you're using it. You just run about and do what you got to do, and it stores it all, and it puts it in a queue. And then when you go and connect up to the universe, it uploads everything securely to your Link Live account. And that's a pretty big deal.
yeah, one of the cool things that a lot of people likes, and the reason we design it the way it is right now, is that there is a single device. So for example, with Air Magnet and other solutions, you had the laptop, you had the little adapters that you had to connect. There's other solutions that you still have a laptop or a tablet or a phone, and you're tethered with a, let's say, USB cord to the measurement tool itself. So there's multiple devices that you have to carry around still. And we were like, yeah, now there's a lot of stuff to carry around. How about we combine everything, user interface and test hardware, into a single device? And that's how we decided to, hey, just take the testers that we currently have. We already do testers like this for cable testing and so on. Just add all the Wi-Fi functionality in there, or take everything that the AirCheck has and has had for a while. For those that remember the original AirCheck, and then basically just add the site survey functionality, make it easier. Just one device to do everything. But in this case, different from the G2, we have two Wi-Fi radios, so you can perform both active and passive at the same time. So instead of having, like I said, walk around twice, one to do an active and then do a passive survey, you can do both on the same walkthrough. And the main idea is keep it simple as possible and collect as much data as possible in the single walkthrough. So not only the site survey data, but in the background, you could be doing spectrum analysis if you wanted to. Or, as you said, all that analysis and discovery information is being saved in the same file. So when you upload that site survey data, you also get all the analysis information, topology mapping, basically everything on one single walkthrough. So
Yeah, it's incredible, man. And the fact that another big deal is I didn't have any, and you touched on this. There was nothing else connected to this. No USB cable to my mobile device or to a tablet or wireless tethering or whatever. It's one device. That's all you need. You're walking around, this one thing in your hand. That's it. You're done. Now, I say that, but for spectrum analysis, you do need the USB dongle for it. So, but even then, it's direct attach. It's not like you're having to carry around something else unless you're specifically trying to use device finding abilities, right? So that's kind of a nice little segue into the spectrum analysis capabilities of these things. So in the industrial and manufacturing universe, spectrum analysis is so much more important than it is, or at least in my view, than it is in standard enterprise, right? Because we have so many more things in the OT realm that generate non-Wi-Fi based interference, RFI, EMI, from motors to drives to all manner of other mechanics. There are unlimited sources of crazy EMI RFI, and that's what makes vector analysis so important, especially as the OT universe moves more and more and converges more and more with the wireless universe, right? And it's becoming ever so more important. So originally, the spectrum analysis on these guys with the first adapter you had was great for spot checks. You know, getting in there and seeing if you had any major sources of interference. I gotta say that the first adapter, you couldn't. It was hard to make out, classic signatures on things like OFDM and like wireless B and whatnot. It just didn't have quite enough resolution, I would guess. But the latest version you guys just kicked out, the NXT 2000, I've been experimenting with it, and I am incredibly, incredibly happy with it. The scan rate, with the increase in the scan rate and the increase in the resolution, all your standard signatures easily are identifiable. Even Bluetooth noise in the background, those awesome spikes on your advertisement channels that comes out nice and clear. I'm really, really happy with that. So now that leads it into more than just little spot checks here and there. It's a full-blown analytic handheld, that doesn't cost $20,000.
Yep, and that was the main idea of it. So as you mentioned, we used to have what we call the NXT 1000. That was the old version, dual band. It was a basic spectrum analyzer for the size, form factor. It was also an OEM that we were OEMing from another vendor. But then for this new version, about a year and a half ago, we decided, wow, we should come up with our own spectrum analyzer. This is not the first time we've done them. For those of you, again, that are familiar with Air Magnet, you may remember an old product called Air Magnet Spectrum XT. That was basically, it used the Cognio chipset. And that was a real FFT, was dual band, but it was also a USB-based spectrum analyzer. So it's not the first time we've done that kind of thing.
I
So we
didn't know
decided,
that. I didn't know that you guys had done that before. Okay.
yeah, yeah, it was a while ago as part of the Air Magnet team. And basically we decided to, hey, just design our own spectrum analyzer from scratch. It was a lot of work because we wanted to keep it on a small form factor, but also improve the resolution and the sweep time when compared not only to the old Air Magnet version, but the NXT 1000 itself. So we got into it. We had ups and downs, but we got it done. And just about a month ago, it was officially released or announced on the 15th. And now it's out there. And this one improves on the older version in a few things. One is a tri-band spectrum analyzer. So now you have visibility on the 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz bands. So if you're deploying Wi-Fi 6E, Wi-Fi 7, and you're using the 6 gigahertz band, now you have visibility in there. So far, my experience, I haven't seen a lot when it comes to interferes on the 6 gigahertz band, mostly just Wi-Fi access points, and not even that many. Just, for example, where at my office, I rarely see anything besides my own test equipment that I have here on my own lab on the 6 gig. But I'm sure that over time you start seeing more. Then we also increase, as we mentioned, the resolution, which now makes those shapes or those signatures a lot more detailed or easier to identify. And then you add that the faster sweep time, so it will go and scan through the channels more than twice as fast as the old one. So add that to the higher resolution, and you can see things pretty quickly and a lot more accurately. But then the other thing we brought back, and this was available on the older Magnet Spectrum XT, is the option of an external antenna. So the NXT 1000 only gave you one option. Basically, it was an external omnidirectional antenna that you just plugged in on top of the unit. This time, we have two options. You have an internal omnidirectional antenna. So if you're just want to do a quick scan, see if there's anything out there. You don't need to plug in anything. Just plug the unit or the adapter to your unit, open the app, and see if there's any signatures out there that shouldn't be there or look out of place. But if you're trying to locate the device that's emitting that signature or transmitting that signature or that signal, this is where the external antenna comes in. Basically, you just plug it to a little port on the side of the adapter. And now with the directional antenna, it's a highly directional antenna that you can basically point towards the direction. So in the past, the way it would work, or if you use the omnidirectional antenna, you will have to walk around the site and see if where the signal was stronger. Because you're using an omnidirectional antenna, so you don't know where the signal is coming from. You just know that it's getting stronger as you get closer to it. But with the directional antenna, now you can stand in one place and just point at different directions and see in which direction the signal gets stronger. And then you can start walking towards that direction until you get to a point where the signal wants to grow any stronger. So it makes it a little easier and cuts down on time for locating those interferer devices, so the sources of interference. And as you know, many times there's not much you can do. If it's a piece of equipment you're using out there that it is needed because it's basically part of what we do around here, you may not be able to do anything about it, but sometimes it's something that you can or disable, or you can move a little farther away from where the access points are at. Or maybe there's not much you can do and you just have to adjust your channel plan and make sure that you don't use the same channels.
Right. If you can't mitigate, you work around it, right?
Yep.
But so at least with that directional, that gives you a much easier way for my OT guys. Think of it like an interference detecting flashlight. You just turn and point and watch your screen as the interference grows larger. You're looking in the right direction, right? Again, so really emphasizing the ease of use for this tool, especially for those who don't have a wireless background, which makes it that much more valuable for those in the trenches in OT.
Yep. And one thing I almost forgot is that does not only the external antenna doesn't only apply to the spectrum analyzer, but also to just locating Wi-Fi devices. So one of the most common uses for an AirCheck is, let's say you're replacing an older Wi-Fi network, but for X or Y reason, no one remembers where the old access points are at anymore. It could be they were installed a decade ago. It could be no one documented. Just maybe changes over time. But no one remembers where they're at, and they're hidden somewhere around the place. So you can use also the external antenna to just track down those access points so you can remove them or shut them down. So
the best part about that is you can enable the noise on it, the beeping noise. So then it sounds like a tricorder from Star Trek as you're walking around and you're getting closer to things, and it starts beeping faster and faster and faster.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had people mention that one, or it looks like one of those Ghostbusters.
Oh, that's exactly what it looks like. Yep.
With the antennas coming up.
Hey, Scott, I could add that to that backpack I just built.
There
That's
you go.
exactly what you need to do.
Hey, so Scott graciously is going to cover for me because I'm about to take my kids to an entertainment theme park. But I thought this was a good time to kind of jump in on some of the stuff that I think that the AirCheck does really well, and kind of all those things you just listed, and especially for like OT people, this is like that one kind of tool in a bag where it's like you can do so much with it, and then even the ability to kind of hand it off to somebody else on the team or like do that kind of stuff. I think that's what's really valuable about this, and especially being Android, like most everybody's got some level of either intuitive or like experiential knowledge for how to operate those systems. And so it seems like just the thoughtfulness behind that, like it's really designed to be able to be put into somebody's hands and deployed. Whereas, like I love Air Magnet, but do I have the right dongle now? I got to hold this laptop in a weird way versus this, if you've got your tool bag, like this is ruggedized, you can sit it in there and it's ready to go. And I really think that this is like purpose built, like almost like a perfect item for like a manufacturing environment. Or I think specifically what is enticing about it to me is like for entertainment customers, because it's not necessarily like, oh, hey, I need to use such and such as device to do like a big site survey, but just like a troubleshooting. And like, if you need to do a full survey, you can do it, but it's primarily geared towards, hey, this weird thing popped up in entertainment. You get beacons and rogue access points and stuff that'll shut rides down, and it could be this vendor turned this thing on and they didn't get permission to do it, and the photo booth shutting down a ride. And so this sounds like it's got everything that you would need to be able to track that down quickly.
Yeah, it's that gives you those smart boots on the ground. They may not have the formal training, um,
Hmm.
but they're smart enough on how to be able to gather that data and utilize it to their advantage.
Yep. So that's my contribution. I got to run, but I'm Julio. Thank you so much, and Scott, thanks for covering for me.
Hey, Jeremy, enjoy your vacation, sir. Thanks for stopping by.
All right, guys. I'll probably hang on and listen for a little bit, but I don't think I'm going to be able to say much else. I'm getting the eyes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Have fun.
Um, and that's why Jeremy's the best color commentator in the business. Just saying. It's the best money can't buy because I can't afford to pay him. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsor for this episode, Global Process Automation. GPA is an engineering and technology firm based in North Carolina, serving clients in industrial processing and manufacturing, focusing on solutions for industrial automation, operational technology infrastructure, industrial control systems, cybersecurity, manufacturing intelligence, and analytics. For over 25 years, their clients have entrusted them with their processes to maximize their company's efficiency and obtain an optimal ROI based upon their assets while protecting their operational technology resources. GPA's mission is to automate, optimize, and secure manufacturing floors everywhere while maintaining their core values to have integrity, to continuously improve, embody their community, remain customer focused, and implement great teamwork. Thanks, and back to our show. So let's talk about the other really big, huge component of this, and that is the analytics piece. So I touched on it earlier when I was talking about while you're doing a survey, you only have to make one pass, and then you touched on it as well because you're only making one pass for both active and passive survey, being able to do multiple things at a time. Well, at the same time you're doing all of this, it's also collecting a metric crap ton of additional sampling information about everything that's going on in the universe around it. So again, we're mentioning bits and pieces of it around us, but the sheer volume of information that it's collecting from every AP that it sees, every SSID, BSSID, anything that's beaconing, anything that's attached to these, if it's being broadcast on those channels, it's recording all of that frame data. And so then when you think you're just uploading one survey package, you're actually uploading multiple analytic files, and this will dovetail right into to Link Live, but you're the sheer volume of data is can be overwhelming, really, because when it just starts breaking it all down, and it's not just your SSIDs, your identifiers and whatnot, but it's also breaking it down on your Wi-Fi types, whether what flavor of Wi-Fi are we dealing with? Is this A and B all the way up through BE? It doesn't matter. It's going to give you that listing, and it's going to identify all these devices that are working in those spaces, or at least have those spaces enabled, right? And one of the best parts is the security identification and being able to identify what security is being used all this place on all of these guys. And then all of your PHYs, it's identifying, frequency to channel spacing and your channel widths and overlap. And it's just honestly, like I said, it can get overwhelming. So I was putting together the assessment package for this aluminum facility, it actually took me close to a week longer than I normally do because of just this mass amount of fascinating to me, because I'm a nerd, but just fascinating, overwhelming amount of information. And I run on the philosophy it's better to have and not need than need and not have. So I had to really filter through and pull out what was important and relatable to this site. What was my goal for this particular site? So I was able to tailor all of that. But like I said, it's just a mass amount of information, and none of it is bad. None of it is useless. It's all useful information for end reporting, and that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, basically, what we were trying to do is that different from other solutions that specialize on one thing or the other. There's lots of site survey options out there, but we were like, since we're out here, why not collect as much data as possible? After all this, we have all the information here. So let's just add it to the same package and upload it. And as you said, that includes all the site survey data that basically covers or collects information about all the access point or the infrastructure itself. It also, one thing that a lot of people may not know is that while you're doing the site survey, it's also you're collecting client data. So information about IoT devices that are connected to the infrastructure, information about scanners, just phones, tablets, etc. And you can actually generate a client survey heat map if you wanted to on Link Live. So you can see the signal strength of those devices, how many. So if you want to see where most of the client devices are on the site, and maybe most of them are connected to only one AP, basically see where the load is on the network on the site. You could do that. Or you could even just use the signal strength information to see the location of devices or see if IoT devices are actually transmitting and working out there. So if you have, let's say, temperature monitors, lights, etc., and they're connected to the Wi-Fi, you can see all those devices because all that information is being collected and saved as part of the survey data. You also have yeah, go ahead.
No, well, one of the things I didn't realize it was also collecting until after the fact was all the Bluetooth data.
Yep.
So, mass amounts of Bluetooth data is being collected at the same time. Now, Bluetooth, that you can look at that one of two ways. Yay, Bluetooth, whatever. But there are a lot of sensor packages out there for industry and manufacturing that run on Bluetooth. So to be able to validate their physical connections with a Bluetooth survey, that's all right. And that there's even as I recall, isn't there an option to show a Bluetooth breakdown in a passive survey too?
Yep, that's correct. Yep. Basically, if you turn on the Bluetooth radio while doing the survey, that will collect Bluetooth data. And when you upload it to Link Live and you select that project, you'll see a BLE survey option.
Yes, that's exactly yes.
Yep, and that will basically allow you to generate Bluetooth heat maps instead of Wi-Fi heat maps in there. So if you're using Bluetooth beacons for, let's say, location services, then you can see what the coverage of those beacons is on site. Or if you just want to see, as you said, what where the client devices are, what's connected out there, etc., all that information will show up in there.
I was impressed with that because again, that's something I didn't realize that it did. And so when I was just messing with some of it, I was like, I was like, oh, what is this option? And I hit it and I was like, oh, this is a Bluetooth map. I'd never seen one of those before. I'm not saying others don't do it. I don't know if they do or not, but it's the first time I had been exposed to it.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty important to bring up.
Yeah, when we released or added a feature, we were the first in the market. I don't know if anyone else has caught up to it, but for some reason, even though there's lots of tools that do Bluetooth or BLE design, there was no one out there that will do actually a Bluetooth validation survey. So we decided, well, since we already have a Bluetooth radio here that we use for connectivity, like connecting your headset and things like that, why not use it also for site survey. So we decided to add that functionality in there. Then one more thing I want to highlight very quickly. You mentioned about the time it took you to analyze through all the data. So yes, if you have the knowledge, the expertise, there's tons of data in there. But one thing you can also do if you need a little help on both the Air Mapper or Site Survey app and the analysis section, there's what we call the Insights engine. This is like a, I don't know, kind of a analysis tool that will take all the data you collected and based on your requirements, like minimum signal strength requirements, SNR, etc., it will tell you or give you a quick pass or fail and identify common problems. So
Can you, so I specifically wanted to call out the Insights button, because first of all, my question is, can you configure the Insights to look for specific things?
Yes, you can. So basically, there's a list of pre-configured requirements, as we call them, for Insights. But you also have the option of turning on and off those requirements, or you can change the pass-fail thresholds for those requirements too.
Because I was using it just as its defaults, right? And so I would just click it and see what it was showing me, and it actually pulled out exactly what I was looking for. And what it was generating was a quick list of so what I refer to as low-hanging fruit. Your easily identified troublemakers. You know, APs that are using 40 megahertz wide in channels and 2.4 gigahertz. APs that are using 180 megahertz wide channels and 5 gigahertz. This is an industrial facility. We need to be using all our channel space wisely. We can't be doing that, right? Identifying and calling out various legacy security and making that known, saying, you know, hey, look at me. My problem is I'm on WPA. This is legacy security, you know, and being able to point all these things out in a quick list for that section was invaluable. So now you're not having to dig through all that. And now that I realize you can go and manipulate your own parameters, that's going to make it even easier for the next one.
Yeah, basically, there's a little option called edit limits. Just go in there, and you can play by turning on and off different options or things that you want or don't want to see. Change all the pass-fail thresholds. You can also, for example, one that's disabled by default is basic rates. So you can select which basic rates you want to see in there. So if you don't want to see 1, 6, 12, for example, you can make sure that those are highlighted by Insights. And then not only that, but when we started with Insights, we added it or we included for the Air Mapper or the site survey section. But if you go to the analysis section, we also added Insights in there. So if you're just doing a discovery of the network, not a full site survey, you can also get access to the Insights.
That's where I found it was discovery.
Okay.
And I thought it was awesome. I didn't realize that was over at Survey too. So I've got more learning to do myself on it. Well, yeah, because that really helps quicken the pace of the overall analytics when you need to pull out all your major pain points for stabilizing your environment, right?
Yes, indeed. And one thing also we added recently, this was part of the latest release, is that we added Wi-Fi 7 information there. So it will also tell you if there's Wi-Fi 7 devices. Someone got creative and decided to use a 320 megahertz channel width in there. So all that is now also available. So that's as part of the latest version of the software there too.
So let's talk a little bit about Link Live. So I've been using Link Live for a while now, and I really, really, really do like it. The only issue I have had with Link Live is there's a little bit of a learning curve figuring out its file system on how to save files, you know, group files together. It took me a little while to figure out that. That's probably the only piece of the puzzle that's not super intuitive. Otherwise, when you get in there and you get into your analytics files and you start clicking on things, all of these really well-built graphics and graphs start coming up of important, material, be it device types, be it if you're doing a discovery, the VLANs that it's detecting, authorization class, subnet information, channel usage, security types. It's breaking it down into these really, really nice visuals, and it's very crisp, very clean, very easy to read. And I was really impressed with that. But and this is really kind of silly, but one of the best parts is just clicking on a little menu and you can print that chart or you can download that individual piece in multiple different formats. So a PNG, a JPEG, even a vectored graphic is one of the options. So what that really allows for is just unlimited custom reporting with just easily importing these graphics just as images. And that's really, really nice. Where I'm an old school Air Magnet user. I really, really liked Air Magnet. I've used it for a long time. I am not a fan of its reporting because Crystal Reports is it's difficult to work with. It's fairly clunky. The graphic images were great, but it was very difficult to custom do any sort of real customization to that report. So it's not something you just wanted to print out in a PDF and kick off to a customer because they're not going to understand any of it. So what that did do though is force me to figure out how to make appropriate custom reporting and pull the images I want. So kind of a double-edged thing going on there, but it's so much easier with what's on Link Live, and it makes the reports pretty because who doesn't like pretty graphics and pictures, right? I'm a visual learner. I talk about this all the time. So if I have something that helps me visualize something, this is why I like spectrum analysis so much. I'm a junkie with that stuff. That visual acuity is what connects it to my brain. It helps me understand conceptually exactly what we're talking about. And so when I have these comparison charts and circle graphs and whatnot, it helps me understand what I am looking at, which then helps me explain it to those who don't have the full experience and background. And I'm talking to the client. They don't have the education background to understand what it is to read it on their own. So you have to be able to break it down in layman's terms. And visual graphics like these really, really help a lot. And it's not like it's just throwing garbage visuals at you as far as garbage data. It's all meaningful, actionable data. So I've been very, very happy with Link Live. But I know I'm just running off the mouth here, but a big component to this is that once you create a file and you have things stored in there, you group together, you can share it with other people. And that goes back to kind of what Jeremy touched on a little bit ago, is once you have somebody who knows how to use one of these devices, they become smart hands on the ground and they can gather all this data and then upload it. Well, then they can share it, right? With other linked live users. So they can, hey, we don't have to bring you out here. We gathered this data. Can we have a few hours of your time to look through and analyze this for us and tell us what's going on? And that's a huge, huge deal. And I have already been talking with people specifically about that because I know their budgets aren't that big. And so bringing me on site or bringing Jeremy on site, that's a pretty hefty expense because you've got a lot of extras that come along with that. But if you have one of these and you have the smart hands available to go do that running around on site for you, and then you're just giving us all the contextualized data, that can save you a lot of money and time on the back end.
Yeah, and that's how we wanted to design Link Live. So just a little historical here. Initially, when we developed Link Live, it was about 9, 10 years ago during the Fluke days, and it was only for the little Lynx printer. So basically, the only thing you could upload was Lynx printer test results initially. And over time, we've added more functionality to it, and now it's basically our all-inclusive cloud-based management system for test results and the devices. But one of the bigger things about it, going back to your point is that it's a collaboration platform. So like you said, you don't have to be there to do the testing anymore. If someone on site can just take the unit, walk around, go to the problem area, that's all they need to do. Because one of the things that Link Live allows you to do, for example, is remote control. So you can remotely access the unit, tell the guy locally, hey, stand on the problem area. And then you connect remotely and you run all the tests that you want. All the results get uploaded to Link Live. You can do your analysis remotely without having to even touch the unit at all. It doesn't even have to be your unit. Basically, they can have their own unit. You can just invite them to your organization, and any test results they collect, you'll be able to see from your Link Live account.
I didn't know you could invite outside organization. I didn't realize that. That's cool.
Yep. And not only that, if they give you the permissions, you can control their units even if they're not yours at all. And you can do that temporarily for a specific project, or you can just if let's say you have a maintenance contract with them, then you can just invite them to your organization anytime you need to access their network. You just basically tell them turn on the unit, and now you can remotely access and do your testing. Not only that, but you can also share, as you mentioned, test results. Let's say you generate a report or one of the graphs that you want to share, or you want to give someone access to all the site survey data so they can play around with it themselves. Even if they don't have a Link Live account, you can do that. So you can use the share album option. And that basically what it does is that it generates a URL or a link that you can email to someone. And even if they don't have a Link Live account, they just click on the link and that gives them access to that specific file or project that you want to give them access to. So different from what we used to do, for example, on the Air Magnet days where you had the viewer license, where you had to install software. It was free, but basically you still have to install software to be able to import the site survey data. You don't need to do that anymore. You just need a web browser and basically a link to the data to access that.
That's awesome.
And,
you don't even have to sign in or anything. It just you send the link, and then they can look at all the data. That's important, and that's really conceptually that's a game changer for a lot of support models, specifically for advanced wireless issues.
Yeah, more when you think of it that we don't charge like a subscription fee for Link Live. Basically, it's
just
included.
Part of your support package for the device, right?
Yep. Not even that. You could go, even if you don't own one of our units, just go to link-live.com. You can create an account. You won't see anything without any test results.
Well, right.
But you still can create an account if you want to. And if someone sends you a test result that they collected, you can import it in there, or they invite you to an organization and now you can see test results and you don't have to pay anything. There's some functionality that gets enabled if you have Allied Care or a support contract on the unit. For example, remote control is one of those where if you have a support contract on your AirCheck or your Cyberscope, for example, then remote control gets enabled in Link Live. But all the basic functionality is there available for free already.
So you just mentioned something, Cyberscope. So we have our AirCheck, which is now at its third generation. So it's an AirCheck G3, but we also have the Cyberscope, right? Well, our Cyberscope Air. So what's our differences there between our G3 and our Cyberscope Air?
Yeah, so basically, besides the color, so for those of you that have seen them, the way we differentiate them is that the AirCheck is green, Cyberscope Air as a black case. But besides that,
and it's it's cyber, right? So it has to wear a hoodie and sunglasses, right?
There you go. Yep. So, but yeah, basically, joking aside, the cyber part, we added it because now not only do you have all the functionality of the AirCheck G3, but you also now have cybersecurity or vulnerability scanning. included in there. So for example, one of the things that you'll see when you compare the apps available on the AirCheck and the Cyberscope is that the Cyberscope has an Nmap option. And this is like a custom version of the app that we created, but it allows you to import or create your own Nmap scripts, and for example, and just run them by themselves, or you could have the discovery engine run them automatically. So you could say, okay, well, you're discovering every device on the network, do a port scan on every device. So I can see which ports are open on any device and out there. Or tell me what version of the operating system is there, and are there any CVEs, known CVEs that we should be aware of for those devices. So
So
basically,
I was talking to a good friend of mine who is a corporate OT engineer for what is currently the largest pulp and paper manufacturer in the world.
mm-hmm.
And they are starting to look at cyberscopes. They have, because they're starting to try to move more into wireless innovations into their process, you know. And so he and I were talking, and I was like, look, man, you know, I know you've already done one site where you've fully put all of your HMIs on an OT, isolate OT network. So, for those who aren't familiar with, HMI is a human machine interface. It's usually a touch screen, and it allows you to manually manipulate controls for various machinery, whether you're turning something on, turning something off, opening valve, closing a valve, starting, stopping, or adjusting speed, whatever. HMIs are very important because, like I said, that's your manual controls for whatever process that is going on. But they already have one site that they have moved to all their HMIs are wireless, so they have this mobility aspect. So now that they can carry around a tablet-based HMI while they're troubleshooting and start stop, they're not having to go all the way back to an office or radio to somebody else, which can be a safety issue, right? But one of the things we were talking about is, and you know, you hit the nail on the head with CVEs and different things like that. So now you can take this cyberscope and you can connect it up to that wireless network that your HMIs are on, and you can run vulnerability scans. You can run all those device scans. You can, if you are a scripter and you have built some custom Nmap scripts, you can then run them against your devices on what should be an isolated network for these HMIs and controls, but this will tell you real fast if it's not. On the flip side of that, it's also going to give you exactly what you talked about, you know, vulnerability information. You know, once you upload the results to Link Live, it's going to cross-reference those CVE databases, and that's a really, really big deal. And so what that does for OT guys is that puts a lot of cybersecurity validation enhancement right in the palm of their hands that they don't have to go to a third party for. And that's a huge, huge deal, especially when you look at the size of some of these companies globally. And again, you know, my buddy and I were talking about this literally just yesterday. That's a massive undertaking when you're talking about a pulp and paper company that's their size. We're not talking one, two, three, four sites. We're talking, you know, 40 sites globally, you know, hundreds of thousands of employees, you know, that's a massive undertaking. And to do any sort of cybersecurity initiative across everything is going to be really, really expensive. But when you can get a device like one of these and take a lot of it into your own hands and utilize and leverage these tools, that becomes a game changer because you don't have to go out and pay a premium price for these super high-end cybersecurity professionals to give you the same basic data that you're looking for basic validation and segmentation. And a lot of these sites, they have limit. They're like anybody else. Just because it's a manufacturing site doesn't mean it's loaded with money. They have budgets too. So there's a lot of advantages to getting somebody on site who's trained and been able to at least go and get that basic data and then share it with somebody you either have on staff or you keep on retainer. I don't know. There's 1,001 ways you could do it. You could do it.
Oh yeah, and not only that, one of the other things you can do with it is you can use it as a temporary monitoring solution. So there's a monitoring option that you can enable on the Cyberscope. So let's say you want to just scan constantly over 24 hours for X or Y problem, identify changes on the network, or as you said, or just detect vulnerabilities, then you can just leave your cyberscope there, scanning, and it will constantly report to Link Live, and you'll be able to see over time how different metrics change on Link Live itself. So it's
I didn't
pretty cool.
realize you could do that. That's cool too.
Yep, under the same analysis section, if you go there, you'll be able to see you have the two options, analysis and monitoring.
My whole day is going to be shot now because I'm going to be digging into a lot of these.
So yeah, a pretty cool option, and this is another one that's not available on the AirCheck. It's only on the Cyberscope. So.
That's only on the Cyberscope. Okay.
Mhm.
When that's something else that we were talking about is what would they were interested with the Cyberscope moreover than the G3 specifically because of these security things. And when I started telling him about Nmap, and he happens to be a dabble in some scripting, so when I was telling him about Nmap and whatnot, his ears perked up, and so it's interesting stuff, man. And it's incredible how versatile this tool is. For the OT universe, the fact that it truly is kind of an all-in-one to be able to do all these multiple functions for the area of wireless that they're starting to get into. I mean, some places more than others are already more advanced in wireless applications, but a lot of dirty industry is not. And it's one thing to have wireless sensor packages, which is starting to become really prevalent for, preventive maintenance, vibration, temperatures, humidity, whatever. But for actual Wi-Fi integration on the factory floor, for things like HMIs, for things like industrial PCs that are doing different functions for whatever process it may be, being able to do it wirelessly, it saves a lot of money if you can versus structured cabling, if you can make sure it's going to meet your 5 nines of uptime, right? And to have tools like this to validate that, because everybody's got cable testers, everybody, even with talking with my guy, they have a fleet of link runners that they use for all of their physical testing, so they're already familiar with NetAlly in general. Everyone has everything, all this dedicated towards their hardline infrastructure, but now that they're starting to move in the direction of wireless, they've got to start thinking about that same aspect for wireless support as they have for wired support.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, indeed. And hey, for those of you that do both, we've been talking about Link Runner, which is more of the wired side of things, AirCheck, Cyberscope Air, which is the wireless. But you also have the combination of all of the above, like the Etherscope or just the normal Cyberscope. So you get that visibility on both wired and wireless. After all, not only on industrial environments, but everywhere else, basically wireless is becoming the actual access layer now, or the edge. So everything is connecting to a network through a wireless. That being said, yeah.
You bring up what you're just saying right there. Everything's coming through wire. What was it that David Coleman said in his presentation at WICO?
Mm-hmm.
Was it 70 to 80% of all data now is acquired through wireless means?
Yep, that's
I
right.
mean, come on, man. It's insane. It is absolutely insane.
Yes, yes, indeed. That being said, hey, the wired side is still there. All that infrastructure back end is still wired. After all, you need a wire to get to those access points, not only for data but for PoE. And you still need your switches, your servers, and so on. So that's a very important part. But one thing you'll start noticing over time is that those core speeds that used to be more in data centers, like 10 gig, are now moving a multi-gig to the edge, while data centers are going to 100 gig, 400 gig, 800 gig, terabyte speeds now. And basically, everything else from there is on the wireless side of things. So.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. I mean, that's where it's going. And when your major manufacturing groups are starting to move critical things to wireless, you know it's completely unavoidable. It's coming. So you have to start building your support mechanisms for this, and this is a great way to do it. Julio, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show today. This has been fantastic. I love glorifying my favorite tools. This is absolutely one of them. I've been a NetAlly fan for a long time, as with being with Air Magnet and whatnot. But the more and more I use this, the more and more it becomes ingrained into my processes for site assessments, for troubleshooting, whole nine yards. You guys have done an amazing job with this, and it truly has a solid place in the OT wireless toolbox. And so all my OT guys out there, Julio, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about this, set up demos? And then you've already given me one link that I've gotten the show notes. I'm going to be bugging you for more because I want to make sure I get plenty of links in the show notes for people to reference. But how can they reach out and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways. If you want to contact me directly, basically at Julio.Petrovich anywhere on social. Interestingly enough, was available anywhere. I guess it's an interesting combination. But yes, at Julio.Petrovich anywhere. You can also just contact us at NetAlly, and just say you want to chat with me or anyone else. We can help you there. You can also go to our website, netally.com, to our contact us section there. Or if you want to just talk with us in person, we'll be out there on the road for a few different shows this year. We've already been to a bunch. For example, we were at Waco, North Carolina, which, again, great event. Thank you very much for having us or having me there.
Well, we were lucky to get the space because just before Doc Brown had it when he was putting his 1.21 gigawatt power display, so we were able to get the time slot right after that.
Nice. Well, if it's becoming a 2-day event next time, let me know because I'll be happy to join you.
I'll be keeping you informed because you guys have become a great sponsor now as well. So that is fantastic. Man, again, I can't thank you enough. This has been awesome. And I look forward to talking with you guys again as you have more innovations coming up. And I think Jeremy and I have a tools roundtable that we're planning. And if you're agreeable, I'd like to have you come back for that. There may be other manufacturers there, so you have to play nice, but
hey, no worries. I'll be happy to join you guys again.
That's awesome. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. Have a great day. It's beautiful weather here in North Carolina. I hope it is where you are.
Yes, it is.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and we hope you join us on our next episode of the Industrial Wi-Fi Shop.